Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's August 1st already. My gosh, it's like blink and it's over. Well, let's jump right into it today. It's kind of an ironic topic this morning. Accepting unsolicited advice gracefully. Yeah, I know. Go ahead and chuckle at the irony because I chuckled at it for 15 minutes. But this is a big part of not just parenting, but life in general. As many of you know from social media and other parts of life, everybody's always giving everybody else advice. And advice sometimes is good, it works. Other times it's just kind of more of a, well, this is what I did out of the blue. And it can be hard. It can be hard to accept either kind of advice, even if you ask for it or it just comes from somebody else. But even if you ask for the advice and they're talking and you already know that it's not going to work, the best way to handle it is still accept it gracefully. And then same with unsolicited advice. And over the years, I've discovered a very simple way to do that. Not only will it keep the peace and help the other person, it will also kind of not put too much pressure on you to act on the advice, take it, apply it to your life, things like that. And first, we're going to go over the advice you ask for. Okay. Sometimes in life, we all struggle. 100% of humans on this planet struggle, right? It's inevitable. And sometimes with those struggles, we can't figure out where to start, what our next steps should be, a solution, any number of things. And as humans, we reach out to others, trusted friends, trusted family, just sometimes, anybody we can find for advice. And sometimes when we get that advice, we know right away that it's not going to work. But instead of being rude about it, accept it with grace. And one way to do that is obviously be an active listener, show the person that you're listening. Don't be rude. And then once they're done speaking, you can simply say, thank you. I'll consider that. Don't say, thank you, I'm going to do that. Because do means you're going to take an action. But if you consider it, that means you'll think about it. So even word choice in this instance is kind of important. Most people may not pick up on that, but they might. So think about your word choices, right? Especially if it's something that may not work, you still thank them anyway. And you say, oh, I'll consider that, or I'll think about that. That's okay, because you don't want to seem rude. You don't want to seem like, why would you say that? I've already tried that. I've already done this. I've already done that. No, because they don't know what you've tried. They don't know what you haven't tried. You're literally saying, I need help. I'm struggling with this problem. I'm struggling with this concept. I'm not sure how to maneuver this in life. So be respectful, use your manners, say thank you. And then if they keep talking and you're starting to get uncomfortable, you can also excuse yourself. And a good way to do that, obviously, is respectful with manners. Wait for them to finish speaking and being that active listener and say, well, I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate the time you took to give me this advice, but I have other things to do, and we'll talk again soon. And then you can get up and leave. You can go to a different group of people, depending on your environment and where you're at, what you're doing, but always excuse yourself with manners. Okay. Even if you're in the grocery store, you know, say, well, I really got to finish getting groceries. I've got 100 things to do, things like that. Right. But you do so with grace and respect for the other person. And that seems easy enough to say, but it's kind of hard to put it into practice when sometimes the advice you get just really upsets you. It kind of hurts because they're saying things that you may not agree with. They're saying things that, you know, definitely doesn't apply, but you have to keep in mind the other person. If it's somebody that barely knows you, like say a distant cousin, because that's, what happened, they may not know the intricate details of your personal life. So what they're suggesting or advising is not a good thing. But you got to keep in mind to yourself, okay, this person really doesn't know me. Now, you're probably saying, if somebody doesn't really know me very well, why would I ask their advice? Well, you never know, because somebody else could say, well, I've never been through this. I don't know how to give you advice on this, but so and so does, right? So you might have approached a family member to begin with, and then they didn't have advice, but they referred you to another family member or a friend that might have experience and can give you advice. So that might be the route you take to get to that outside of your inner circle person for advice. Um, but the biggest takeaway is how you accept that advice, even if it bothers you. You still, instead of reacting to that advice and getting upset or hurt, you still thank them, you know. And one thing that I suggest is, don't tell somebody that their advice is no good. Honestly, just it's not that it's rude. It's, you know, consider the other person. Um because if you want respect and you want somebody to actively listen to you, then you also have to give it. There's an old saying that says respect isn't earned, it's given. Or respect isn't given, it's earned. See, I got it backwards. And that is the case. But at the same time, you if somebody disrespects you, give them respect back. One, it'll might shock them. And two, you giving them respect says more about your character than it does theirs. Them disrespecting you says everything about their character. So that's another little piece of advice there. But if they're telling you something and it bothers you, still be respectful. Because again, you approached them and they took the time out of their life, their schedule, their day, whatever, to answer your question, give you advice and things like that. So that should garner from you a reaction of respect and manners. Now, if it's clear out of left field and it's insulting, it's degrading, it's condescending, patronizing, whatever, you can still respond with respect and grace and things like that. But my suggestion for that is use the gray rock technique. Do not get angry and then scream and yell and shout, because the person may not understand that they're triggering. The person may not understand, what they're saying, because in their mind, oh, this makes sense to me. This is the way I speak. This is what I do. But for other people, it may be a problem. For you, So use your gray rock technique and still thank them for taking time out of their day, or thank you for answering and giving me advice. I'll consider it, you know, and then, express your feelings. Now, I'm not saying, tamp your feelings down, never express it, keep it inside, seethe over it, just, no. Um, just talk with somebody else. And then once once you've worked through that, if the person says, "Hey, did you try that?" You can say, "Well, at this point in my life, that didn't really work, or I wasn't it just didn't feel right based for my life or my beliefs or whatever." Um, you know, but I do appreciate you taking the time to do that. See, you can express yourself in a manner that doesn't hurt others and still get your feelings heard, right? And that's actually a big key to a lot of things in life. Now, that was solicited advice, basically advice you ask for a problem, a solution, a colicky baby, anything, right? Unsolicited advice, however, is a little more harder, because unsolicited advice many times catches you off guard, right? Because you're not asking for advice. You're minding your own business. You're doing your own thing, grocery shopping, raising your children, raising your pets, um, at a function, and somebody will approach you because they've observed you with your fur baby, they've observed you with your child, and they're processing what you are doing, right? And they may approach you. And sometimes they'll approach you in a positive way. Other times they'll approach you a little more aggressively. But either way, you know, um, the situation should be handled with respect and manners. So let's go over the first one, where the person approaches you in a kind way. Now, I understand that a lot of people think unsolicited advice is unkind. That means people's being nosy, they're staring at you, they're judging you. That might also be some feeling you have. And a lot of times it is because they're being nosy, or you're a new parent and they think, "Oh, they have zero experience with this. They don't know what they're doing. I have this experience." And that can already be like an instant put off. You just want to go, "Okay, why are you doing it?" You may not understand the context they are thinking of, right? Because there's no neon sign. None of us have ESP. We're not mind readers. We don't know. So if you are approached in a semi-respectful way for the unsolicited advice in any environment, again, be an active listener. Don't instantly jump on that person and say, "Oh my God, I didn't ask you. Who are you?" Because even strangers will do it. And I know over the course of the years, um, I've had that happen to me many, many times. And of course, first child, you're a little nervous, but that instinct kicks in, right? So you kind of know, okay, this is what happens. This is what I need to do. And then as a parent, you base your parenting skills off of your childhood experiences, the way your parents parented you. And so you kind of look at that and say, okay, I know how to do this part and this part. I'll figure this part out. You kind of can go from steps and, oh, this is what my parents or my guardian or my grandparents or whatever did. Oh, okay. I'll try that. See if that works. And if it doesn't work, then you try something else. You come to my channel, you comment in my community tab, get you there. Or you go ask for advice from another trusted person. But when that person approaches you and says, "Oh, I see you're doing this with your child," and of course you would be like, "Yes, I am," positive. you know, it, yes, you're in shock. And if you prefer to answer that person like using a gray rock technique, feel free. Because one, you don't know, you may not know who they are. But that doesn't mean you get completely defensive or, oh my gosh, this person approached me. Um, but you can do gray rock, right? And I have not gone over that technique yet. I probably will on Thursday. Matter of fact, let me make a note of that because that is an excellent way not to subdue your feelings. You'll have to forgive me. My office is still a disaster here. As you can see, I've got projects everywhere. Not to suppress your feelings, but more of a quiet response. One that doesn't upset you, cause a panic attack, or, you know, um, upsets them to where they get angry and defensive and things like that. See, look, I'm writing it down. Oh, goodness. Okay. And then from there, they would most likely, oh, I see you're doing this with your child, or, oh, such a cute baby. And then that might be followed with, when I was raising my children, or when I was doing this, then comes the advice. Now, if it's a stranger, and honestly, not all of us feel comfortable with strangers for whatever personal reason we have, you can continue to go gray rock. And then that way, maybe through that, now, not severe, but, just enough to say, okay, thank you. You would allow them to speak, right? Don't interrupt them. Don't get rude. Don't start screaming. Just allow them to say their piece. And then, once again, thank you for your advice. I greatly appreciate it. I will consider it. My child and I, or, my fur baby and I. And then you could, if you feel like it, go into an explanation. If you do not, that's fine too. Okay. But at the very least, active listening, respect, and manners. Okay. And sometimes people will pick up on that gray rock cue of, oh, they're not really interacting. They're just kind of there, and they'll stop at the one piece, maybe stop the conversation and move on with their task or whatever. And then at that point, you don't even have to think about their advice, right? Especially if you were an active listener and you realize, oh my gosh, there's no way I can do this, absolutely no way. Then don't even worry about it. Okay. And don't think that every single person that approaches you has useless advice. And don't think that every person that approaches you with unsolicited advice is doing so from a judging standpoint or a malicious standpoint. Sometimes people just want to help. And not everybody knows everybody, so they don't know how they're going to react, but that's just the way they are, their personality, right? They love to do things. But again, you can gray rock, or you can smile and, oh, well, thank you, put a little bit more into it. Now, sometimes though, that encourages them to kind of hang around and chit chat. And even then, if they decide they want to chit chat and you're like, I gotta go because things are, little, I'm really busy, then use that. Say, well, I appreciate your advice and staying here to talk with me, but I really got to go. I got so much to do. And that is definitely a very to the point hint. Do some people get that? No. I've had that to where I've had to say that 3, 4, and 5 times. And then at one point, I kind of asserted it a little more. I was like, well, I really appreciate this, but I really have to go. And I wasn't rude about it. I just kind of asserted it a little more. Now, the other type of unsolicited advice, it is difficult. Excuse me. Because some people do approach you in what may feel like a very aggressive manner, right? And you automatically go, you're defensive because you don't know why this person is approaching you and your child, you and your spouse and child. You don't know. And that kind of automatically puts you in a defensive mode. But here's also where you watch your reaction. Because even if the person is judging you and they walk up and say, well, you know what, you're really doing this wrong, do it this way. And that's their advice. Just stop what you're doing and do it my way. Again, well, thank you, but this is the way I'm doing it with my child, and I appreciate that you have experience and you're sharing that with me. But again, this is my child and this is the way I'm raising them, or this is the way I'm doing this. And of course, if they're already defensive, if they're already kind of miffed, frustrated, that response won't calm them down. It may make them more frustrated, but that's on them. Okay. And every parent has their own unique and individual parenting style, even within a family, right? Every guardian is different. No matter what type of family it is, everyone is different on how they raise kids or fur babies, and they do what works for them, even if the rest of the world doesn't agree with it. Now, it's all up to you and your response. And here's why. Your child is watching, right? Forget all the people. If you're in a party, if you're at a grocery store, forget everyone around you. Because their reaction to your response, it's irrelevant, right? They don't feed your kid. They don't pay your bills. They don't come over for dinner. You'll probably never see them again. Or if you do, it'll still be, oh, I recognize her because she comes in every Tuesday for a loaf of bread. But they won't know your name. None of this. So their responses doesn't matter. Your child is watching. Even if that child is an infant sitting in that seat while you push the cart, while you carry them, they're learning. They're learning. They may not understand, and to them it may be a Charlie Brown type teacher, but they're watching. They're learning. And if you respond with anger when someone approaches your child for something in childhood, teenage years, later adulthood, they're going to respond the same way if you do that, because they're going to say, oh, well, dad did this, or mom did this, or mom too did this, or grandpa did this. So that's how you react. That's how you respond. But even as an infant, even if they're nonverbal, if they don't speak, they're listening. They're watching. They're watching your body language. They're watching your words. They're listening to learn. And if you respond with respect, grace, manners, and instead of being antagonizing the situation or responding in a negative way, you're teaching your child, hey, it's okay to be an active listener. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to do these things, but how you respond is what's important. Because it's kind of true what they say, the way you respond to something, it shows your character. It shows who you are on the inside. I mean, as you can see, I'm not the greatest looking thing in the world. But most people don't pay attention to that. They, oh, mama's there to help. Mama's there to listen. That kind of thing. And I apologize for the dogs barking. I have a neighbor with massive dogs, and they're cute too, let me tell you. They're sweet. They just run around and chase everybody up and down our fence. Anyway, I'm digressing. Refocus. It says a lot about your character, and it says a lot about the way you teach your children, right? Because if you respond with respect, manners, and kindness, then your children will as well. Now, obviously, you want to teach them stranger danger. You want to teach them other things, right, to keep them safe, just as you would want to keep yourself safe. So there's other little nuances in there. But respect, manners, kindness, all of the good stuff, right? And if necessary, gray rock. I don't always recommend the gray rock technique in every situation because you do want to seem grateful for that unsolicited or solicited advice. But sometimes you just can't help it because, as a parent or as a guardian or, somebody that just has that extra intuition, you can tell. You just, that little bulb goes off and it says, ooh, 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 ooh. No, 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 no. But you don't want to react in such a negative way. You don't want to react in such a, way. You can gray rock the whole time and then process your feelings later. And I know that sometimes feelings for people are just so big and so instant and so overwhelming that it's very hard to do that. But as I've said before, practice makes progress because perfection, that's a myth. I guarantee you it's a myth, but practice makes progress. Okay. And the more you use these techniques, the easier it becomes, right? Just like with learning anything else, learning to walk, learning to tie your shoes, potty training, learning to write your name, your alphabet, math, atmospheric science, any of that. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. And that applies to manners and everything else you want to teach your child. But unsolicited advice and solicited advice are some of the hard things as a parent of a fur baby or a parent of a child. That's hard because it instantly feels like it's a critique, right? Like somebody's judging you. And then you sometimes begin to second guess yourself. Oh my gosh, am I doing this right? Or is this true? I mean, I've done it this way for X number of weeks or X number of years, or this is what really works for my child, but now I'm not too sure. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Unless your child is suffering and the doctor says, you know what, this really isn't working, try this. I mean, I'm not saying just, throw all caution to the wind and let your 2-year-old roam the streets because that's what works for you. No, right? Consider the safety, consider common sense parenting, things like that. But if you're doing something and your child is thriving and happy and loved and is progressing towards those milestones or, doing things that most people thought they couldn't, things in that realm, then you're doing okay. You really are. And sometimes people don't think that because they didn't do it that way. Or they have something going on within themselves or within their personal life. And they want to advise you, well, I'm going through this now and I did it this way and this is what the result was. Okay. But maybe they didn't understand that that particular technique didn't work for their family unit, their child, their fur baby. And now there's some problems. But it's a technique that works for you. And that's okay. Because like I said, a lot of times parents and families, what works for one family unit may not work for another, or may not work for 2 others or 3 others. But then what you do for your family unit works for 100, right? Because every single person is different within that family unit. And every family unit is different than other family units. And that's where you have to know and understand what works, and then understand where the other person might be coming from their experiences, from their life, from their internal conflict or their internal issues, that maybe they don't mean to sound aggressive, maybe they are just angry with you, but don't jump to conclusions immediately, right? Because sometimes there's little clues that you can hear in their tone of voice, their body language, the words they use, the order of the words they put in the sentence, So, and yes, that is a lot to process for maybe a 2-minute interaction or a 30-second whatever. But even if you can't process it in that exact moment, try to process it later, especially if it upsets you or really deeply hurts you, like somebody is judging you. Maybe they were just trying to convey, hey, that technique didn't work for me and my family unit, but I don't think you should do it. Okay. Well, I appreciate that, right? See, there we go with the manners and the grace and the kindness. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry it didn't work for you or something of that. You don't necessarily have to apologize, but, and then again, tried and true statement, right? Thank you. I will take that into consideration. See, it's just one sentence. And then you can, as the conversation develops or as the things go differently, or if they walk away, you can go on about your business, right? And then feel how you need to feel. But don't keep those feelings inside, right? Keeping it inside makes volcanoes, and we don't like volcanoes. Volcanoes don't really help anybody, especially the person that's volcanoing, right? Because then it just, yeah. So talk to a friend, talk to somebody, and tell them the story and tell them how it made you feel. Be like, man, this person approached me and I was grocery shopping and I was doing something, and then all of a sudden they just stormed up on me and it felt like they were really judging me. And now I'm kind of doing this, and your friend may offer you advice. They may just be an active listener and say, well, I'm sorry to hear that, right? But that's where that comes in, you know. Um, don't hold it in, but also don't take it out on the person offering the advice, even if it's somebody because you don't know where they're coming from. Now, I know on social media, we see all these videos of people exploding, people getting upset, and other people are laughing them, they're mocking them. They're like, well, I don't understand why you are getting upset. Well, that's because you don't know them. And that's fine. But what isn't fine is making fun of that person because they are struggling. Yeah, they're rude. Yeah, they do things. They say things. They act things. But do you really know why? Or is it just you think they're funny enough to put on social media for the whole world to make fun of them? Do you know what happened 20 minutes before you arrived? Do you know if maybe they're going through a personal crisis and it's just whatever happened was the final straw and they just couldn't take it anymore and they were volcanoing? No, you don't. And I get it that society has been building to this for a very long time. But with the advent of social media, now it's everywhere. People grab their phones. People, instead of being understanding and avoiding that person and letting them do what they need to do, unless they are physically attacking you, your family unit, or, breaking things or putting others in danger, why put them on social media? I mean, and some people are just jerks, but still, it doesn't matter. Why put them on social media? Just go about your day. If it has nothing to do with you, they are not yelling at you, they are not screaming at you, they are not hurting you physically, just leave them alone. And I know that is very hard advice to swallow because everybody in this world now wants clicks. Everybody wants attention. Everybody wants that instant gratification and say, oh, look, I found this, what a person, and they are struggling right now. So I'm going to put this on there and see if I can get 1 million views and make it go viral. Okay. But why? I mean, it, would you like it if you had a struggle moment and somebody recorded you and put you and out there to go viral and laugh at and poke fun at? You would you? I mean, and that's what I don't understand. I mean, yes, I'll admit I am extremely old fashioned, like you know, little house on the whatnot and all that. But at the same time, it's like, what's the purpose? What fulfillment did it give you to make fun of this person? And yes, a lot of them, they start fights or they say words that are very offensive or hurtful. Okay. But why antagonize them? Because, just gray rock. If they approach you, if they talk to you, gray rock. And be like, oh, okay. And leave it at that and go about your business. Because there's no reason. Because if one of your family members just struggles, or a young family member, an old family member, and people are starting to do it to children now. Yeah. They're not just targeting the adults to go viral to make fun of. Their adults are targeting children and putting it out there. But do you know if there was something wrong with the child? Or do you just assume that they were throwing a fit because they didn't get a piece of candy or a toy? And I know a lot of people's going to be upset with this, but how do you know there wasn't an issue like autism? Or there were so many people, the music was loud and everybody was banging and everybody was yelling, and then the child just couldn't take it anymore, so they just laid on the floor. How do you know that? Well, you don't. And that's okay. But to film it and make it go viral for the clicks so people can say, what a brat, what a horrible child, what a horrible parent allowing their children. Why? Makes no sense. And even if you have an adult that struggles with certain things in a social environment and they just can't take it because it's so much, but yet they can't leave that environment to calm their brain, and then you're going to put them on blast and make fun of them and then have other people make fun of them. Why? What are you getting out of it? Gratification of judging somebody and making fun of somebody? But then you're going to turn around and say, well, nobody can bully my family. Well, that's funny because you just bullied that one by doing that. Instead of, I hope they're okay. Or, wow, that was a lot. I hope they feel better soon, right? But no, you didn't do that. So today's final advice: be grateful, respectful, use your manners when accepting any type of advice, solicited or unsolicited. Be an active listener to understand the advice. And the last little bit, and I'm saying this from a place of mama love and mama kindness. Before you grab that phone or whatever it is you have to record something because you don't understand it, or you think you should humiliate that person because they're acting inappropriately, think twice. Because what if it was you? What if it was your child? What if it was your niece, your nephew, your cousin? What if it was somebody you worked with that just was struggling? What if it was you? and, decide what you want to do. And now, if you want to do that, I'm not going to stop you. But that doesn't make it right. So if you don't want bad things, okay. And I think I'm back. Oh my goodness.